1 minute, please.
आणि मला न विचारता तुषार मागणं जा.
Friends, good evening.
Good evening.
Today we have Dr. Purnima Kashyap with us, who has an illustrious work record and is also the daughter of one of our very well-known and active members who recently passed away and who has been a stalwart for UVA Delhi as well as for IFUA and GWI and then IFU, Dr. Sushil Bhardwaj. Now, Dr. Purnima Kashyap has been the global coordinator for UN for her entire career span with United Nations. And the most important thing is she has been the part of the Nobel Peace Prize winning team for the year 2020. And she has been working on humanitarian causes for quite a while. She will introduce her work profile to you in a while, and then we will get to know where she's heading in terms of the humanitarian crisis with the view towards women and women empowerment. I now request our president, Ranjana Di, to say a few words to the gathering, please.
Good evening, members, and thank you, Purubi. As the month of March came in, I spoke to Purubi and said, Purubi, this is the month where we need to do a women-specific event from IFUWA in order to recognize 8th of March as an International Women's Day. So luckily, we set our hearts on Purnima, whose illustrious career will be unfolded today. She's a part of the group that won the Nobel Prize in Peace. She will discuss what is very important and intriguing in today's century is that peace is something that we are driving for, whether it's in a women's life, but all around us in society, in countries everywhere. There is so much of devastation, violence, and erosion of human values that living is almost become a miracle, more so in the life of a woman. And this phenomena that women face a tremendous amount of negativism in life in her attempt to lead a peaceful life is evident all over. It is sad to note that the humanity, is making rapid progresses and positive changes in many spheres of existence. However, we also need to understand that the role of women, which is of course improved in this 21st century, is yet to be achieved. Today, when we read the papers of the state of the Taliban school girls, we understand what tyranny and politics is about giving education to girls, that they are barred from it. So everywhere we need peace within ourselves. We need peace all around us to help us focus, concentrate, and take our society, our women folk forward. So Purnima, when she came up with her book and her contributions in this area while she was in the United Nations, we thought that perhaps it is important for our sisters all over the country to know and to be acquainted with whatever work that she has done in this huge but very important sector. So my best wishes are with you, Purnima. I remember your mother today, who was a great friend of many of us present here. We did a little bit of a minute silence on the day of the CC when news came in that she has passed away. So with her blessings from top and all our best wishes, I hand it over to Purnima to take it forward. Over to you, Purnima.
Thank you, Ranjanadi. I will ask Purabi to put the slides on because I put the presentation
अंकल
on a
बोलता है कि
PowerPoint.
वो नीचे वाला होल नहीं है बढ़ाई, वो बोलता है कि धो दियो, कैसे धो के पानी निकलेगी?
जैसे एक दफा करवाया नहीं
तो उतना दूर जब धो तो फिर पानी अटक कर जाएगा बीच पे।
I
नहीं
think let's mute.
1 minute,
Let's
let me see
Somebody's-
who's yeah, 1 minute. Okay,
Yeah, okay.
you want me to put up the PPT or
Either way, Purabi, whatever
I'll
works
share
better
the
for you.
screen. I'll share the screen
Okay,
and you can do it your way. 1 minute.
perfect.
Have you got it?
No.
You should have just check.
Mm,
Just check.
no, I cannot see that. I can.
I put as multiple participants can share. Now,
I can only see you on the screen and I am not able to see the.
Purvi, why don't you do it for her?
okay, I can do
Yeah.
it. Okay.
I think it's better if you do it for her.
Thanks. Thanks so
You
much.
know, this
All right.
technical things.
Yeah, you know, you get spoiled when you have people to help you do this, and when you're retired, you don't have that same help.
Yeah.
I'm struggling in that.
Sometimes
in that
technology
at the
plays up.
moment. Yeah, it
So,
does.
Purvi, do it for her so that
Yes,
we can
yes,
take off.
yes.
Okay, while Purabi is setting that up, there you are. Wonderful. Thank you, Purabi. Just that's the title. But before I start today, I wanted to take the opportunity to first thank Ranjanadi, President Ifuwa, and Purabi for your support and understanding in this very difficult time for me and my family, and also to make this session possible. I also wish to take the opportunity to thank my mother, Mrs. Sushil Bharadwaj, for empowering me and my sisters, 4 of us, to get to such high professional levels in our own fields. She was very proud of her 4 daughters and often said that she has many 5th daughters, all of those who were inspired by her, and she treated them as her own children. So I was, can you hear me? Hello? Am I audible?
Yeah. Continue.
Okay. Yeah, she should have been listening in person today and been a part of this session, but I think God willed otherwise. I know she will always be with us and is joining us from wherever she is, and she must be giving her blessings to all of us to make this institution strong and empower women even more all over the world. So thank you, Mom. Can we move to the next slide? Just to take you through, probably can we move to the next? Next slide, please, Purabi.
1 second, I'll have to go back to 1 second.
Okay, just to give you a glimpse of what the World Food Program in the United Nations is. It is the largest of the humanitarian organizations globally, not just within the UN, but as any organization, with a total staff strength of 21,000 personnel in 123 countries. WFP raised 14.2 billion US dollars all through voluntary contributions in the last calendar year. And on any given day, WFP owns and has 5,600 trucks, 30 ships, and over 100 planes that are on the move delivering food and other assistance to those who most need it. It is the lead agency for supply chain for not just for the UN, but for the civil society, for governments and whoever needs assistance in logistical support, communication, and transportation as well, for personnel and for the materials. The focus of WFP has primarily been on saving lives during humanitarian crisis, but also changing lives during crisis and in normal times, whether it is a response to war, earthquake, floods, drought, or pandemic. WFP played a very major role in combating and providing support during COVID crisis, and also during other influenza and Ebola crisis as well. So today we will talk about, it's okay, just, pause,
No,
go back.
I'm figuring out.
No,
I don't
I
know.
will tell you when to move
I've got
next. Go back, please.
yeah, I've got a full screen. Sorry, I'm getting.
Yeah, I will tell you when to move on. I'll just
Yeah,
say
I know.
next.
It's
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
All right. So basically, through the work that WFP does in the long-term development, it basically creates the pathways for peace and stability and prosperity of the communities. It was established in 1961 as a small project of the Food and Agriculture Organization. Its headquarters are based in Rome, but in recognition of the decades of work that WFP did, it was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2020. And it has indeed been my personal honor to be a part of this excellent institution. And I give you a picture of the pin that each of the members of the Nobel Peace Prize winning team has received. That's my personal pin, recognizing the Nobel laureate as part of the team. Next one, please. Okay, my journey in WFP actually started in 1991. Before that, I was with the Indian Council for Medical Research. I worked with the International Development Research Center of Canada, both in India and in Canada, and then moved to WFP in 1991. I worked in India till 2000, and after that, I became an international WFP staff, and I have been stationed in Ethiopia, Uganda, Zambia, Haiti, Ethiopia again. During the Somalia drought, I was there in the South Sudan refugee crisis. I've operated out of Jordan. I was there in Yemen when the war broke out in Yemen in 2015, 2016. I was in Geneva and then in Rome in the headquarters, where I was the global coordinator for nutrition for the entire UN. During this period, I had the privilege of visiting 80 countries to provide technical assistance and support, and worked in the war zones, in floods, in droughts, in earthquakes. I was amongst the first responders in Haiti in 2010 after the earthquake struck there. In stable situations, I've worked in my technical background is public health and nutrition. I have a PhD in public health nutrition from MS University in Baroda. And I've been engaged in maternal child health programs, basically promoting appropriate infant and child feeding practices, HIV/AIDS and nutrition programs, literacy programs, school health programs, and many others that are cash and food for work related programs. I've developed the corporate programs, policies, and been engaged with HR policies as well in my role within WFP. And my last assignment was the director of UN Network for Nutrition. And during that time, I encouraged governments and leadership to take invest more in nutrition, not just in nutrition as direct intervention for what we call as nutrition specific activities, but nutrition sensitive as well, like nutrition education, like water and sanitation, and other associated aspects. We move to the next one. Now, I will focus my presentation in two parts. One is about the humanitarian crisis and how it impacts women, and what kind of support WFP has been providing in such crisis, and a little bit about WFP and its leadership roles within the organization in responding to crisis. Next one, please. Now, in WFP's work, I mentioned about it, basically within its own gender policy, has emphasized that, you can retain that one, the previous one, emphasize that, and it's an old policy, it's been there for over 2 decades now, that there is need to give attention to tackle the inequalities that oppress and discriminate against women and girls and promote equity. and economic equity and empowerment, but at all levels, including economic empowerment. In 2022, as I mentioned, WFP raised its historic amount in as 14.2 billion US dollars for its programming, supported 158 million people, of which more than 50% were women and girls. Next one, please. Now, we all know that in crisis situations, women and girls do get disproportionately affected. You can see these pictures. One of them is from Bangladesh, the first one after in response to floods. Women have a very difficult situation in collecting waters, as they are basically the collectors of water for fuel wood for firewood for the cooking purposes. Women tend to eat last. The girls at very young age are forced to take responsibility of caretaking. And we all know that women and girls in particular drop out of school when there is a crisis, and employment for women does get affected. These are not very different from what we would see in a very stable situation, but the situation does get exacerbated during a crisis, and the women do get affected further. Can we see the next one, please? Now, again, we can probably skip this, but basically it talks about how lack of education impacts women because they don't have literacy skills, they don't have fund management or financial skills. Women don't get credit facilities because they don't own land or don't have assets, and are always marginalized when it comes to inheritance laws. If we look at agriculture sector as well, because of this, despite the fact that women do a major part of agriculture work, they are not involved or not invited or engaged in major agricultural training, simply because they are not considered to be able to learn or apply some of the technologies that are being taught because they have been illiterate. And often we see that there is all the farming equipment that is available is very heavy and unlikely for women to use them as well. Next one, please. In war situations, we also see that women are left behind in the households, taking care of the elderly and the children, because the men and boys have gone on the war and actually engaged in fighting. And that adds the burden for the women, despite being insecure, not just in the general respects, but also because of risks of the kind of environment in war zones, the kind of negative situations that they have to face because they are in an unsafe environment and have to go out to do their regular chores. They are still forced to they are left behind to do the activities at home. Now, so within this, next one, please. Now, I want to move a little bit on what WFP does and where I have been engaged in programming for women. WFP has these special nutrition programs for women and children. They are basically nutrition support for the women and children to meet the needs of the pregnant and nursing mothers and children, but also most importantly in conflicts, in humanitarian crisis, the nutritional status of the mothers and children in particular deteriorates very rapidly because of the insecurities, because of the unsafe environment, because of lack of availability or access to food. And therefore, WFP spends a lot of effort in providing nutrition supplements to treat and prevent malnutrition in women and children. What WFP does primarily, while it was established in the early years through food donations, it has now moved towards more and more towards buying food locally in countries to provide the nutrition assistance to the mothers and children, because it helps the local economy as well. We can move to the next one. The other program that WFP has been engaged with has been the, Purvi, can you put it in the presentation mode? Because I think we're not getting the full slides. Can go, yeah, and you can go
Is
back.
this better?
Yes, go back to the previous one. Perfect.
That is where I was having a problem. That's why I'd gone out of that
Yeah.
mode. Anyway, let me
I
try.
can go back to the previous slide. Just to mention that school meals are a very important aspect in humanitarian crisis for WFP as well, because children and particularly girls drop out of schools, out of schools. And while we know that it helps build having a healthy brain, good nutritious meal at school, it helps build the human capital. Over and above that, in WFP also supports girls through special initiatives where the household is given. You can you can go back. Probably you can go back.
Is
No,
it
you're
going
going
back? Is it
ahead.
going forward?
You're going
Is it going
ahead.
back?
You're going ahead.
More.
You go back. Probably you need to go back.
I know. That's why I'd gone out of this mode.
You're helping me complete the presentation. You're very generous.
Yeah, 1 minute. 1 minute. No, I had gone out of this mode because I was not able to change the slide.
Yeah. Okay.
Which slide are you
If you
on?
just go forward, you will be able to change it because no, you need to go up.
Where are we? Are we on which number are we
Yeah,
on?
you can go up 11. You can go. Okay, we'll skip the
stay
10 for
here.
now. Yeah, I think we can share the slides and everybody will get the full view because I don't think we're getting the full view, but doesn't matter. So what WFP tends to do is to promotes local food systems in its programming. The reason being that it helps local communities to produce more. The farmers have easy market, assured market closer to where they are producing. It helps diversification of food and agriculture work. And those are products that are provided to children, which also helps part of the nutrition education to the children of the kind of food, getting them to have nutritious foods from early time in life. It helps small farmers because the procurement is done through small farmers. It helps small farmers to, particularly women who are engaged in these activities, to earn a livelihood as well. Next one, please. Okay, WFP also works towards directly empowering women through trainings, building assets, and does cash transfers as well. One of the biggest challenge for women to attend, even in crisis, to attend more so in crisis, to attend any of these trainings is the challenge of basically loss of their time in other things and not be able to provide do those things, and they have to be compensated for the time that they lose from outside home and other activities. So as an incentive to allow them and enable to them to do that, WFP provides cash or food transfers to the women to undertake some of the non-traditional activities to build their capacities. There have been trainings in carpentry, in masonry, computer skills, agricultural practices, financial bookkeeping, which has been a weakness for women all through VC, and helping establish small enterprise as well. Some of the major works in climate change resilience building has been building water canals, doing rainwater harvesting, regeneration of subsoil water, and water conservation activities as well. You won't believe that this can also be done. It sounds as though in a very stable environment, but these can be done in war zones as well. As I've seen this happening in so many of the countries that I've worked in. In drought-prone areas, there is a lot of work that is done to prevent further droughts by recharging subsoil water, collecting water, even the rainwater harvesting when there is rain, how to collect it, and conserve water when it is available. And this also reduces recharging of subsoil water, reduces the effort for women to go further away to collect water. So the water is available nearer their homesteads. And of course, they can grow pasture for their animal as well, which further enhances or empowers them in being able to manage things closer to their homes. Next one, please. next as the next. We're going back. Yes, perfect. Just to touch upon this, one of the biggest one of the more recent programs, I think in the last decade, has been providing something like our UPI mechanisms or cash, ATM cards that we have. That using those to get the resources, whether it is a cash transfer to the women, getting money into their accounts, or being able to purchase their food rations from the local market. This has been a very major in some of the most difficult areas. And you can see this example from Somalia, where women have their cash cards, basically, that they can use in the local market to purchase their food rations. And the biggest advantage of that is they buy local foods. They can diversify their diets. They're not limited by what WFP would have given as cereal and pulses and oil. They can buy other necessities for their food and non-food items for their households. One of the biggest, big things that we notice with when we have larger scale communities gathering together is using their time in providing nutrition health education. And I think that's a very important part in terms of empowering women and children in learning better in what local foods are good for them and how they should do all the feeding practices for themselves and their family members. Next one, please. Now you will see that these two slides are actually put in because these are both from very remote areas. This first slide, where you see Kotido District Education Committee. This is a very remote region. You can kind of guess by the outfit of the woman as well. In Uganda, the region called Karamoja. Karamoja has like a district that is Kotido, where the woman is actually engaged in the district education committee. And this is part of the empowerment in very remote areas, that women are encouraged to come and take part, and they themselves are very keen that their children participate in their education, in the education program, and they take keen interest in what education is being provided to the children. And on the right is the picture of the woman who's basically helping and doing community, doing the participatory planning for the community with the group in terms of identifying where the resources should be placed. Next one, please. Now I wanted to give some visual impact of how climate change activities have been done. This is what we call as the half moon on the first slide, half moon pits, which actually are sloping, which collect the rainwater, and the water seeps down into the subsoil. And you will see the picture of, this is from the Sahel region. You will see that there are these two pictures which actually show after a gap of 10 years, how this entire region has grained and people are able to grow their crops. There's water regeneration, the river is flowing once again, and there's a lot of green that you see on the right side of the second, on the right side of the picture, where these half moons were created. Next one, please. Just moving from programming, just wanted to give you a glimpse of some of my activities. This is all Yemen during the war, but just to give you a sense of, there are a lot of women within the organization in leadership roles. Even at the height of this crisis, and you'll be pleased to know, the height of Turkey earthquake, the chief of WFP operations was a woman and an Indian lady. So, and a very, very wonderful colleague of mine. So a great privilege to have women in leadership within WFP. The next slide. And you will notice from here that, next one, please. That WFP has a total international staff, as I mentioned here, of 1,882, of which nearly 47% are women. Now, the interesting part comes as we move ahead. The executive head of WFP at the moment is a male, but if I was to give this talk in 2 weeks' time, we would have had a female sitting there. If you're aware of Cindy McCain, John McCain's wife, she will be leading WFP very soon. Now we have 5 deputy executive directors, out of which 3 are women, 2 are men. We have at the senior level, senior positions, we have a high level of women in leadership. So WFP that way walks the talk of gender empowerment, and not just for the communities and advisory, but does it within itself as well. Next one, please. Now, I just wanted to read a few of these voices. No, I mean, there are so many women in leadership, but just wanted to read this. The first picture is from WFP in Syria. Now, this is the first female storekeeper in a country, Syria, during the emergency that she joined 11 years ago, opening the door for many females to enter into this field as a storekeeper. So she says, when you go to any WFP warehouse in Syria, almost half of the staff now are female. I feel so proud starting this change. I think you can read all the other ones as well. This one is a WFP driver. The third one is one of the senior operators, supporters for the WFP aircrafts, helicopters in operation in different countries. As I mentioned, we have aircrafts and helicopters as well. Next slide. Now, I just wanted to give you a glimpse. This is 50 years of WFP. This was in 2012. There was a small article on me, on my work in the organization, but this was just after, of course, 2012. But this article actually is based around my work in Haiti after the earthquake. As I was one of the first responders, it says go for it, Ma, because it comes actually from my conversation with one of my senior leaders, my deputy executive director, who basically asked me in the second day after the earthquake, saying, your name is coming up in the management committee. We want you to go to Haiti. Will you be willing to go? And I was in Zambia at that time, and my children were very small. And I said, I need to talk to the family because my husband's not here. And I would like to talk to him and the children before I leave, but I would like to go. So next day in the morning at breakfast, I asked my children, what do I do? And my children said, go for it, Mom. And I think this was taken so, it was very emotional. I called my husband, he came over the following day, 2 days later, I was in Haiti responding to the crisis. But it is interesting that as WFP has over time had women in leadership, it has also recognized the work of all the women in the leadership positions that have worked and continues to do so. Next one, please. This is just to give you a glimpse. This is Yemen again. And if you will notice, there's an equal number of men and women in this picture. This is my team behind me. And you will see there were 3 men, 3 women in the senior leadership positions in Yemen. And we were signing an agreement with the local government, and unfortunately, fortunately or not, was a man who was there. So it's a very balanced number, gender-wise, very balanced group of team that I had in Yemen as well. Next one, please. I just want to before I close this presentation, I just wanted to say thank you for listening. Most importantly, I want to say that despite everybody's concern on the IPL starting, I think we've maintained the number of people. They've only increased from when we started. You still have time. IPL starts only at 7:30. So good luck to the match and the tournament itself. Thank you very much. Probably that's the end.
Yeah. I'm getting back to the view, normal view.
Purnima, are you done with your presentation?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, Ranjani.
That was very nice listening to the different roles that you have played as part of the United Nations. I just have one observation. Have you worked more with the area of Uganda, Somalia, Zambia? Was that your focus area?
Major part of my career was in Africa. So I have done yes, Ethiopia, Somalia, actually entire, if we look at the East Coast to the West Coast. So we have Uganda, Somalia, Zambia. I was in the West Coast, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Ghana, many countries on that side as well. But major part of my career was in Africa, and then I moved to Yemen, Geneva, and then to
because the sub-Saharan countries are in any case much more handicapped than the rest of the world.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. A lot of countries, I mean, in fact, even Ethiopia, to my surprise, the first time I went there, I was very pleasantly surprised, because Addis, as the capital, is an amazing city. It doesn't connect with what we know of Ethiopia. It was freezing cold. It was green. It was, the people were very like any other city. But in certain parts of Ethiopia, which is the drought-prone area closer to the Somali border, has always been in crisis. So yes, then there's the crisis. South Sudan and Sudan, we had refugees because of the wars. As soon as Sudan was formed, within 2 years, South Sudan was formed, break up from Sudan. Within 2 years, it totally collapsed. So there were refugees by the hundreds of thousands that came into Ethiopia. And
That's
Uganda
right.
Uganda had a major crisis in the north with the Lord's Resistance Army. And maybe someday I can take a case study of a country and then take you through, because in Uganda, we were escorted every time we went into the displaced populations camp. We were protected by 2,000 soldiers in trucks for our entire movement. It was an amazing experience with the bulletproof vehicles and with the soldiers protecting
Because the
us.
physical security is also important to be involved in any kind of work.
Right.
And that was from your presentations that became very evident, and the education level being so low.
It's true. It's very low. It's very low.
It's very low. Doesn't the government do anything over there?
They do, but I think if you look at this, that's why the imbalances, if you look at our own country, certain states are ahead, some are not as ahead, and they're catching up. There's some regions that have been historically prone to conflict. They're prone to droughts. They're prone to floods. So they have had a lot of natural disasters. And traditional societies, we've seen that everywhere. Traditional societies hold back women's empowerment. They don't let women develop at all. So breaking that barrier for those communities in a crisis situation becomes even harder. So empowering them, it needs to be done, but in a conflict. I mean, you were giving example of Afghanistan, Taliban. Look at, I was there in Afghanistan. I spent a lot of time in Afghanistan. Look at what has happened. The women have now been pulled out. In fact, the United Nations, and not just the United Nations, the civil society, NRC, Norwegian Refugee Council as well, have struggled now to keep women employees to work in the communities. So leave alone empowering local communities, even the service providers have been pulled out. So it's a big challenge.
Indeed.
And
it's one of the world society. Friends, whoever has to interact with Purnima, please go ahead. Anybody wants to ask anything or clarify or know? It's interesting listening.
Please unmute yourselves.
I am on mute.
Yeah, others are all on mute.
Oh, others.
This is Gomati. Can I speak? May I speak? Purnima?
Yes, Gomati, please go ahead. And the rest of you also.
I just have had kind of a little contact with Ethiopia through meeting some taxi drivers in Washington, D.C., who have always been there when I arrive in Washington, D.C. on short visits, to tell me how grateful they are to Indians, and especially Indian teachers in their schools. They said most of our education system is through the Indian High Commission's schools that has CBSE boards in Addis Ababa, and children go to these schools because they give them quality education. So that's something that I felt very proud of, because when I sat in the taxi, he said, "Ma'am, are you from India?" And I said, "Yes." He said, I take my hands in salute to you because you come from a country which gives us great teachers. So I think perhaps people like you go there and base yourselves, and you see how the country people are grateful to you for what you do to them. I'm so amazed at the kind of work you've done, Purnima. Amazing.
Tiji, thank you so much. But I totally agree with you. The respect that Indians have in Ethiopia is unbelievable. It was the time of Emperor Haile Selassie that there was a major agreement between India and Ethiopia, where all the teachers, science teachers, mathematics teachers, were all from India. And I can tell you, it made my work in Ethiopia with the senior leadership much easier, because just that association that I'm an Indian and I will only do good for the nation. I did not have any other, political agendas behind me as some of the other nationalities may have. And I think that respect continues even to date, because like you mentioned, those taxi drivers in Washington, DC, no doubt. But you get to Ethiopia, you will find there's such an amazing respect for Indians, because they have been educated very well. And their teachers were known to spend their extra hours with their students to clarify, with great patience, clarify their doubts. They were real dedicated teachers. That was an amazing generation of teachers. Not so many now, but because the education system has come up a long way, but several decades of Indian teaching in Ethiopia.
And if I may boast a little bit, I've had the opportunity way back in 1955 to see Emperor Haile Selassie. We lined the
Wonderful.
streets of Bombay as he arrived in his royal yacht at the Gateway of India. And he's a diminutive man, he was so small, but in his military attire, he went past us, and we were all in college, and we just, shouted, "Welcome, welcome."
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Purnima, I just want to ask you that you, of course, and a number of women that we saw in your slides, but that apart, is there any proportion to which women are working in comparison to men and the United Nations in the different portfolios?
I mean, quite a few of the UN organizations, UNICEF, UNIFEM, I think UNFPA now have executive heads that are women. In senior leadership, a lot of women there. I think Secretary General Guterres to have brought Deputy Secretary General as a woman as well is also commendable. So there is a lot of recognition of women in higher positions. A lot of even in crisis, even in war zones. I think there was a time that people probably felt that certain jobs, and one of the reasons why I put that picture of the storekeeper and the driver was the association that women can't do these things. In war zones, women cannot be present there because they don't know how to do the logistics and moving the yes. And today it's been proved just the reverse. And I think it's also about the compassion women bring
No, I think it's their
in
inherent
crisis
nature that makes
situation.
them leaders in the crisis.
Yeah, I mean, if you notice that picture of mine in Yemen, the women are holding my hand and talking. They will never do that
Yes,
to a man.
that's right.
And the way they open up about their day-to-day life and what is happening to them, they open up to a woman. They will not open up to the man. So, and the difficulties are for the women. In most crisis situations, the women
Absolutely.
go through the hardship. So if you're not able to communicate with them, being being a storekeeper or being a driver does nothing, because you are not
That's
able to
nothing.
engage with the people you need to support.
Absolutely. So we have young Sana
have
over here to ask something. Sana, come
I
forward.
have a question. Can I ask something?
Yes.
Yeah. So, Purnima, my question is, what was the most
most difficult aspect of your job or this task that you undertook?
Is that Sana speaking?
No, that's not. But I can also ask
Amita.
my question and maybe both can
This
be
is
answered
Amita.
together.
Amita.
This was Amita. Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, so my question is
Sana, just introduce yourself.
oh,
I know you,
yeah.
rest don't.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Sana. I am a recent graduate with a degree in conflict resolution and a focus in refugees and humanitarian emergencies, actually. So my question, aspiring to work at WFP someday, what advice do you have for someone?
I think I'll have to have a longer conversation with you. Let's do a full conversation because I don't think I can do justice to your
But in
question and
small
support
time.
in a
Okay,
conversation in this time. But
sounds
certainly,
good.
I think you're in the right direction. I think having it's not just WFP, even UNHCR or International Organization for Migration, or even UNICEF for that matter. Keep your options, or UN OCHA. There are a lot of agencies that are directly involved in these areas. So I'm happy to have a bilateral conversation with you and talk you through what the options could be, what the entry points could be, and how
Please,
to
I
go
would
about
love
it.
that.
Yeah, and if you are willing to go to war zones, I am happy to hear that you are keen on working with refugees. Don't limit yourself to Ukraine. I've had a lot of people talk about how can I go to Ukraine and help people. There are many
No.
other places where you can help people. But if you're willing to go to the war zones, there is nothing more gratifying. So
That's
maybe
right.
I can get back to Amita's question. Amita, it's really difficult to pinpoint what has been the most challenging. I think to me, the biggest challenge has been breaking the barrier of being a woman and head of the institution. I think especially in some of the conflict zones, like I mentioned, women are not expected to be in the leadership position because you're talking to men. Women are not considered as worth the conversation. And I think in that respect, to get the confidence of the Arabic men in Yemen was one of a big challenge. In the beginning, it was, and I had to grow my hair. I had short hair. I had to grow my hair because I just thought it made better sense to have slightly longer hair. It was still shorter than yours, but over the 2 years they did grow long. But I think the barrier is the mindset of people when you're a woman in a leadership to take the instructions from you in a conflict zone. They think that you do not know how to lead a war, how to lead a response to a war, how to lead a team of people that are because I'll also tell you why. Because men think they are the cowboys and they can get there and do the things, and women cannot. And I think that attitude to get over that is the big challenge. And I think that's the reason why WFP at one point of time did have a lot of men, because they thought they were the logisticians and they could move things from one point to the other. They are the cowboys. But now the barrier has been broken because in a lot of conflict situation in war zones, in crisis, women are leading the organization and doing it very well. In fact, out of 5 of our regional directors currently, 3 are women. I have not specifically mentioned that in my presentation, but 3 are women. That is amazing. So we have a lot of, I think that is to me the barriers to break as a woman. And it's not easy. You have to fight your way without fighting. And that's the hard part.
Thank you.
I just remember a couple of things from my mother, because my mother taught me a lot of things. And one of the things she told me was never say a thing that comes to your mind in response to somebody's statement. Hold back your thought, count 10, and then say, you will say something very
Prepare the
different
answer.
from what you were going to say. I can never forget that. Second, if you're angry, she said, don't take it out on anybody. Go to the bathroom, spit it out, flush.
Flush
It'll
it
all be
down.
gone. So I think those are 2 things that really have helped me in engaging with people, because it's difficult sometimes to hold back. It can be a very demeaning situation, but you have to hold back and you have to come out stronger. And you can only do it if you're not responding and reacting immediately.
Yes,
Think
because
through.
the instant response is more damaging.
Absolutely. And you regret it. Always you
Yeah.
regret having
And-
said what you said.
You know, Purnima, talking about women taking up leadership roles, once again, if you go through over the newspapers and the TV channels, you will find whatever is happening, the protests that are actually originating in Afghanistan regarding the education of the girls, it's being spearheaded by women.
It is.
The women lawyers, especially.
You know,
The women,
it's
yeah,
very
it is they who are really doing it, and they are ready to lay down their lives for the cause of the girl child.
because they
Because
have seen the
Afghanistan is
advantage of
absolutely
education.
tyrannical.
They have seen advantages of education. I mean, we as organizations have struggled to bring them up to this point, and then this entire thing to turn around so negatively, it's very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Orpita has her hand raised. Orpita, you wanted to say something?
Orpita, please say.
I was just asking that isn't it true that things are changing in the last decade? I was hoping you're going to say that. You know, you've been working for a long time, but in the last 10 years, say, haven't things changed?
I would say a lot has changed, some in some places for the good, some for the worse. If I look at my own organization, I can give you statistics over the years, and in the last 10 years, we have moved. And I think I gave you a comparison of from last year to now. But having said that, that's the positive side. But in many communities, while things have changed and women have been empowered, women have come to leadership positions, even in communities, they're taking responsibility. We're just talking about Afghanistan. We're talking about Yemen. We're talking about a lot of countries where women have gone through a cycle of the positivity and then have been pulled back. And unfortunately, in a crisis, women are hit worst. It's not just the food security or nutrition security that gets affected. It's personal security that gets affected. And unfortunately, I think Ranjanadi brought this up in the opening, the world is becoming a place of more of conflict. You know, we see more conflict now, and who's getting affected? It's not the men who are getting so negatively impacted. It's the women and children. And so it's kind of, it's not that it is, things are not improving. I must say there are a lot of changes to the positive, a lot of things, good things have happened. Good examples I can also cite where WFP has actually handed over its programs because the countries have become stable to the local authorities. That's a big change, that you don't need us anymore. And that's what we in WFP say, we work ourselves out of jobs. That's what our objective is, to help people, empower people to an extent that we are not required anymore. And we have many examples, including India. You know, you won't believe the first program, amongst the first programs in India WFP did was Operation Flood, which was the milk program. WFP brought in milk powder for the dairy development industry. Today, WFP is not required. India is the biggest producer of milk globally. So that's a big change. We helped through the investment in the beginning to, and I think those are the positive examples where you have stability and then you can move on. But when there is a crisis, everything comes back. Everything goes not just back, it goes down. Every example, Afghanistan right now, everybody is well aware of Afghanistan having stabilized and now going back to not even ground zero, to some negative number. So yes, things have changed for the positive in many places, but not everywhere. And we hope it would improve.
Gomatidi, if there are no more questions, you can go ahead with your.
That was
wonderful listening to you. Wonderful.
Ranjanadi, one second. I just, out of curiosity, I'm asking you, the volunteers that they take for the war zones, are they necessarily, do they take the younger people, or do they have an age requirement for that? Do they age bar for going as volunteers to war zones?
No, I mean, I think it all depends on the kind of task that is assigned. for what it is. Of course, there will be an age limit because war zones have their own complications, and you need to have a fit person in those. You don't want somebody who could have health issues and becomes a greater risk for the rest of the team. So I think those are some things something that needs to be thought of. But it entirely depends on the role, because there are some of our very senior staff and very senior experienced people who have worked and volunteered in the war zones, and they were not barred because they were of a certain age. They were brought in because they had certain experience. So I think that is what really matters in having the right mix of experience and aptitude in those circumstances, because war zones are difficult. Believe me, they are very difficult. I've seen aircrafts bombing right over me, and people slashing each other in front of my eyes. So it is tough.
Oh boy.
So if one hasn't experienced it, it's not a piece of cake.
Anyway, you're the first person who's coming directly from a war zone and speaking to us. It's a very, very good experience. Ranjana Di?
I think I have to now take over and say my vote of thanks.
May I?
Just 1 minute. Is there anybody else who would like to interact with Purnima?
Yeah, Vandana Desai. Ranjana ji, can I?
Yes, sure. Is Sudha Padhe there still?
Yes.
Hi, Purnima.
Sudha, happy to have you with us. Contemporary of Sushil once again on the screen. Very, very happy to have you with us.
Hi, Sudha ji.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Purnima. It was really, a wonderful experience, and very enriching, to learn. There's many things we can learn from you. So I just want to ask you one thing. What message you would like to give, and to whom also in India, to increase the women workforce participation? Because you have seen the world, and more or less you have seen the problems also, you have seen the problems of India also. So what message, and to whom you would like to, give the message to increase the women workforce participation, as well as to break the glass ceiling, which have already broken? So
it's a very tough one, because for me, and I think it goes back to the earlier question, or I think Arpita was asking regarding the changes. And for me, having come back to the country as now being a resident in the country, I am amazed to see the empowerment, the changes that the society is experiencing pertaining to women. And I'll give you an example, which I find is so I don't know who to go to. I mean, in terms of, yes, communities and community leaders, we still talk to local people, and I would talk to them as well in terms of breaking some of these traditional barriers. I mean, if a woman can get have an account in her name and get her benefits, cash benefits in her account, and manage those. I mean, the staff that I have here, the labor that works here, the men and women get their money in their account, and they can go to the local market and use it as it was. 5 years, 10 years ago, I could not have, even 5 years ago, I could not have imagined this to be a reality. State by state, I think there are traditions and there are differences, and I think each state needs to look at introspect within their leadership in terms of where to emphasize more. Because to me, I mean, I see, having come into, after my retirement, having come into a state like Himachal Pradesh, women's education is at a very high level today. Girls are getting educated. Women are in technical jobs. The opportunities are being created, but I think the emphasis on social and literacy empowerment. Literacy doesn't mean just reading and writing. Literacy in financial management, very critical. If I don't know 2 + 2 is 4, I can be cheated by a shopkeeper when I'm, paying up for something. So I think those are things that need to be looked at. But I think there's a lot of things that are happening, and it's a pity that Swati is not here from Baroda. Look at the work she and her team are doing there. I think that is women's empowerment. So that's a very diverse area that one can be engaged in socially bringing women the forefront. It's not easy to pick out one aspect because there's so many things in our social structure. I mean, I think to me, the biggest thing as women we can do is educate our sons. If we can educate our sons to respect women, I think the society will change. We spend a lot of time with women trying to help them think differently and out of the box. But who's stopping them? It's the men in the households. We let our boy sit and study while the daughter helps in the kitchen. Things are changing, not the same still, but that's what the average household does. So if we get the boys to start respecting that this is a shared responsibility, women's empowerment will come. Women will have greater opportunity in doing things, and they will feel less you know uh, disenchanted by the society and the way they are treated. So I think if I was really to conclude this, if I was to advise somebody, I would say get the men and boys to understand their role in a society, that they are a part of that, equal part of that society. It's not about pushing women up, it's not pushing men down, it's bringing them together.
I think
And
IFWA
stop
should
it.
also very well said. I think now IFWA should also do some workshops, and you was also to workshop on these things, empowering men to be
Yes, I
successful.
think so. I strongly believe that. I mean, I strongly believe that because we used to do, and why I say this is we used to do nutrition health education for the mothers and children. And at one point of time in one of the programs, I said, no, if the husbands and boys are not there, we are not having this session. Let them understand what, because if the man goes to buy things from the market and he buys things that are not healthy, who's going to
Perfectly.
be disadvantaged? He thinks he's done a good thing. He's got the Coca-Cola, he's done a good thing for the, or he's got some chips, he's done a good thing for the family, but he's doing more harm. So let them also be a part of the understanding process. So when nutrition health education is done, it should not be limited to women.
Yes,
Thanks, Purnima. Now, Purabhi has made a request to all of us to switch on the camera for a screenshot. So requesting all of you to please switch on your cameras.
I think we are 29 of us today.
Oh, we were 36 of us.
We were
Oh,
38.
38 at
38.
one
Good,
point.
good.
Have you taken the
Amita,
screenshot, Purabhi?
yeah, Amita has to come on. Amita, please come on.
Everybody, please switch on your cameras and come
And
on.
then one more person on a telephone number, so I don't know who it is. Amita, can you hear us? Anyway, I'll take the screenshot. So
Please.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, now Gomatadi, please go ahead.
Yes. Dear friends, on behalf of IFUWA, which stands for the Indian Federation of University Women's Associations, headed by Dr. Ranjana Banerjee, and all its executive members, whom I thank for being present here today at this marvelous presentation made by Dr. Purnima Kashyap. It's a proud moment for all of us to have had her with us and opened our eyes to the kind of work she has been involved in the globe, visiting countries which have been in conflict, which have faced drought and death, and done wonders for the women and girls out there. What a wonderful evening we've had of information and removing, ignorance, if possible, from our kind of not knowing what prevails in corners of the world which we don't know of or even read about. I know that the earthquake in Haiti was something terrible. I mean, it was always talked about as a terrible disaster, and that Purnima should have been there is wonderful and remarkable, representing our country, and also as a woman to have been there to take part in redressing their grave situation. I'm glad that the members today turned out because Dr. Ranjana Banerjee has been asking over several days that we should attend this evening's program. It has been well worth, and her efforts behind the scenes to get Purnima to be here this evening, I take my hats off to you, Ranjana, for having arranged this program for all of us. Thank you very much.
Purnima. Thanks
Thank
to
you.
Purnima.
Thank you, Purabi, for being the coordinator and helping with the technicalities of this program.
Thank you.
Goodbye and good evening.
Good evening. Purnima, all the best. We'll keep in touch.
Thank
Thank
you
Yes.
very much.
members,
I
for
look
attending.
forward to
Thank
staying
you.
in touch.
We'll
Yes,
have
ma'am.
more
Thank you so much.
invigorating webinars in the coming months.
Yes,
Right, thank
we have
Thank
got
you.
great programs ahead of us.
Yes.
Ranjana has got plans for all of us. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Ranjana ji, with your permission, should I end the
Yes.
meeting?
Yes, yes.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye,
Thank
bye.
you. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good